Of the Honors Awards Committee, which consists of Pablo Tinio, who's the chair, so I'm here on his behalf, and Zorana Ivich. And so I'm really delighted to introduce this year's Arnheim Award winner for outstanding career achievement, Dr. Roni Ryder-Tallman. She is a distinguished professor of industrial and organizational psychology at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, where she also serves as the director of the program. She is a global leader in our field. She has over 15,000 publications, over $8 million in grant funding, and she has numerous accomplishments. I just want to make sure she has enough time to speak. But I also want to say that she, in addition to just being just an all-star in terms of her research and her mentoring of her students, she also is just a really active member of our division. She's our elect president. She serves as our council rep, our mentor at large, our secretary, and I had the pleasure of working with her on the program chair a couple years ago. And I'd just like to highlight some of the comments that her letter writers wrote, which I think really speak to what impact she has on the field, but also just what a wonderful human being that she is. And I think we can all say that she's such, I mean, even the title of her talk, what I've learned along the way, like she's using this as an opportunity to share her knowledge and wisdom with us, which I think really speaks to what a wonderful person she is. So, Dr. Roni Ryder-Tallman is an international leader in the field of creativity research and is, in my opinion, the most influential and brilliant scholar working in the field of organizational creativity research today. She has almost single-handedly expanded Division 10's reach to include industrial and organizational psychological work on creativity. Her research, contributions to the field of creativity, and her leadership in Division 10 are absolutely exemplary. Her research is thoughtful, timely, rigorous, and published in the very best venues in the field. I can think of no one working in the field who's more worthy of this award, and I can't think of anyone else either. So please welcome.
Thank you. So when I got the notification, I have to say that I was excited and also very thankful and appreciative. There's nothing like being recognized by your peers for your contributions. Thank you to the committee, thank you to my letter writers, thank you for Division 10 for allowing me to do this. So then I realized I have to give a talk. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, I had to even explain to my dad this morning. He's like, there's an award ceremony. And I'm like, well, they introduced me and then I give a talk. No, not really. I had two paths to choose. I said I could talk about my research, which is fine, but you know, okay. Hopefully you know my research. And if not, you could go find it. It's findable. So I thought it might be much more interesting to talk about things I've learned. You know, if I'm getting a Lifetime Achievement Award, that means that I have a lifetime of things that I've experienced. So maybe talk about that. So what I learned along the way. So the first thing I want to do is actually, one of the first lessons is that you don't do this alone. And there are a lot of people I need to thank. So I'll start with that, so bear with me. And if you haven't figured out, my husband's a photographer, so I'm really bad at pictures, and I had to search a lot to find some good pictures. So I want to thank my family. Some of you have met my son, daughter, husband. But before I thank them and give a little bit more information, I really want to thank my parents, particularly my mom. My mom is a psychologist. She received her PhD in the 60s when not very many women got their PhDs. She also was married. She also had me while she was in graduate school and was asked if she planned to drop out now that she's a mom. And so she dealt with all of those things that we heard about. And the reason I bring this up is because of her, I knew this was possible. Because of her, I knew it was possible to have a career and a PhD and do the work that I love and have a family. And I don't know that I would have known that otherwise. My husband's my number one cheerleader. He came to the US because I wanted to go to school in the US, so we moved from Israel to the US. I started out at Georgia Tech. Mike said he's moving, so I followed Mike to George Mason, and I told my husband we're moving, and he packed everything up and we moved. Then I told him we're going to Nebraska, and he's like, where is it? And we moved again, but I couldn't have done this without him. And my kids are absolutely amazing, and both already called me today to check in and see how I'm doing and say congratulations. So they've been absolutely amazing and wonderful human beings, and I'm just thankful to have such a wonderful family that also supports what I do and realize that I love what I do. I couldn't do this without my mentors. So Mike is there. I lifted it from the OU webpage. That was from the Mason webpage. So Mike was and is my advisor. I still go to him with questions. He's the one I called when I got offered my first edited book, and I'm like, Mike, what do I do? How do I do this? But Steve has also been a great mentor during graduate school. He's the one I talked to about groups and teams because Mike refuses to. And I've had others along the way. I've had a number of colleagues that served as mentor, whether it's about teaching, whether it's about research, and so on. So their pictures are not here, but they do exist. And I wouldn't be here without them. My students, also very few pictures, not representative of all of my students, but I love them. This is the part of my job that I truly, truly love and gain a lot of joy from is working with my students, seeing them grow and develop over the years, but also learning from them, because each one of them teaches me something. And finally, my collaborators, and again, just a few of them, not all of them, only pictures that I had. As I said, I'm really bad at that. But I've had the pleasure of working with quite a few people over the years, and it's been an absolute joy to work with members of Division 10 and outside of Division 10, and work on wonderful projects, collaborate, learn from each other, and get great research done. So a little bit about the path that I took. I got my bachelor's degree from Tel Aviv University, my master's and PhD at George Mason, and my first job straight out of grad school was at University of Nebraska at Omaha. And as I said, I came home and my husband said, where is it? My family was like, what, where? We opened, this was before internet, so we opened the atlas, and here's Omaha in the middle of the country. And I remember telling my husband, if I don't like it, if you don't like it, we can move. IO psychologists are movable. We haven't, so apparently we like it. So yeah, that's where I'm at. So one story I like to tell to encourage students is that you don't really need to know what you want to do when you start graduate school. I was at Georgia Tech where we started, and it was like, okay, which faculty member would I work with? And we had a few that were crazy, seriously crazy. We had a couple that had no research program, and I was like, okay, I'll try to work with Mike. And he had 1.5 billion students, so I had to send an emissary, one of his older students, to speak on my behalf, and he agreed to meet with me. And I had no knowledge of creativity. I didn't know I didn't even know what it was. And I walked into his office, and he looked at me and he said, "You're going to work on problem construction." Just like that. and I wanted to work with him, so I'm like, okay. And I was lucky. I started reading, and I fell in love. I still work on problem construction to this day. So it's okay not to know. But I've also enlarged the area of research. So I started working on problem construction. I still work on problem construction, but I also do research on idea evaluation, which is another neglected process at the individual level. In 2010, Mike reached out and said, I'm doing the handbook of organizational creativity. Would you write a chapter on groups and teams and creativity? And I'm like, sure, because he knew I was interested. So that gave me the motivation to really get into the groups and teams literature. And the first thing I did was talk about how these cognitive processes that occur at the individual level get aggregated at the team level. There was nothing in the literature about that, and I've been doing research in that area since. So thank you, Mike. But I also look at creativity and personality, and creative self, malevolent creativity, measurement of creativity, social processes in teams because they influence the cognitive processes, and leadership, and more recently, creativity and AI. So, you know, a wide range, but I enjoy all of those areas that focus on creativity. And I always try to think about, even when I do basic research, which a lot of my research is, what implications does it have for organizations? How do we make this practical? So, that's all I want to say about my research. Because if you want more, go to my webpage. It's actually a pretty awful webpage, but it follows college standards or whatever. My CV's up there. Email me, I'll send you. If it's a pack of paper, I will tell you to download it. But otherwise, I'm happy to send copies of papers. Okay, so what did I learn along the way? I found myself saying this, research is a team sport, and I'm not a sports person. Like Steve Zuccaro, when he was teaching teams and when he was teaching leadership, always used sports examples. And I always was the student that said, Steve, can we get a non-sports example for the people that don't understand football and baseball and all of that? But it is a team sport. Can you work independently and do good research? I don't know in psychology anymore. I really don't think so. So it is a team sport. Whether you have peers as collaborators, whether you have students as collaborators, whether you have, you're working with somebody that is more senior to you, most of the good research that I've seen, all of the good research that I've seen, is really accomplished by teams of researchers. You'll also see it so I'm really interested in science teams right now, and there have been a number of papers showing that there has been a movement away from single-author papers to team papers. And those papers tend to be judged as more, the research is judged as more creative, they're cited more often, etc. So there are practical reasons to work in a team. But I think teams enrich our lives. Working together as a team with other researchers allows you to challenge one another and maybe think a little differently. It definitely helps you share the load. One of the reasons I can have so many publications is because I work with other people. If I was only working alone, I couldn't be that productive. But it's great when somebody else writes the majority of the paper and I only need to edit. You know, a lot less work, but you know, I contributed in other ways to the thought process, but it's great to have, and it's fun to have those conversations, right? Otherwise we wouldn't be here. But if you're going to collaborate, how do you know it's going to be a good collaboration? I don't know about you, but I've had some pretty bad ones. Probably my worst is when I just started as an assistant professor And one of the, so two stories actually. One where I escaped a bad collaboration and one where I got sucked into a bad collaboration. So escaping the bad collaboration was a full professor in our department walked into my office, and the proposition was basically that I will do all the work and he will be the first author and get all the glory. And I was smart enough to say no. But I also was warned about him ahead of time, so that was good. The other one was a colleague of mine who was also an assistant professor at the time. And we had some shared interests, and she had this great proposal for doing this major research project that we both undertook, but it was basically her idea. And she kept saying she would, we got results, it was really interesting. She kept saying she would write it up. It's 30 years later, it has not been written up. And that's frustrating because it was a good study. But I couldn't really take it because every time I tried early on, she's like, no, I'm working on it. So you're going to have those bad collaborations. I think it's inevitable. Learn from them, okay? Learn from your mistakes. So what went wrong? I've noticed years later that this was a pattern. This person barely published. It was not a big surprise. I had no way of knowing it at that time. To me, what makes for a good collaboration is somebody, it's not just the science. It's not just the shared research interests. There's a lot of people that share similar research interests. It starts with, are they willing to work as hard as I am? Because I'll work hard. But if the other side is not reciprocating, it's a problem. Are we okay with each other's approach to work? So I'm one of those people that like to get stuff done early. I get really nervous and break out in hives when things are due. Like, if the proposal is due at 5 p.m., it will be done 72 hours before, not the day of. Drives me bonkers. There are people that love to do things at the last minute. We don't collaborate well because I get nervous and they're not. That to me is something that I now ask, just point blank. James Kaufman, another person who served as a mentor, said, somebody that is fun to work with, right? If you have options, why not choose the ones that are fun ones? So people that I actually enjoy being with. And sitting down and talking about research becomes fun and not just a chore. But identifying what are the things that you really need from a collaboration beyond just, okay, do they have complementary skills and do they bring something that I don't have, some area of knowledge that I don't have? Okay, the technical stuff aside, but in terms of their work habits, in terms of how they approach research in a way that you're comfortable with. And it's okay to ask that, to make sure that you're going to have a good collaboration. Talk about authorship early. You don't want to be caught by surprise when all of a sudden both of you think you deserve to be the first author, and then it can become a battle. And then nurture those good collaborations. When you find a good collaborator, hang on to them, because they're not necessarily easy to find. So how do you nurture those collaborations? It doesn't have to be continuous collaboration for that to happen. But the occasional email, how are you doing? Was thinking about you. Let's get together for coffee or wine or lunch or dinner at a conference that we're both at. Keep that relationship alive. Show them that you care and that you want to continue it, even if you're both in a place where there's nothing right now to do. Just like you want people to respect you, you need to respect them. Play well with others. Right? If you're going to say you're going to do something, do it. If you're going to say you're going to do it in a specific timeline, do it. Or you better have a good excuse. Why not? Right? And let them know up front. At least for me, the worst thing is that I expect something on a particular time frame, and then time goes by and it's not there, and then I have to remember to check in with them and what happened, you know. So be a good colleague. Be respectful of other people's time and effort, and that helps nurture those good collaborations as well. And I'm not saying anything that's groundbreaking, I don't think, but we sometimes forget because we get busy. You will make mistakes. So you will make mistakes with choosing collaborators. You will make mistakes in your research design. One of my favorites is the study. We put a lot of time and effort. We paid money to collect the data, and we realized we collected no demographic information. Don't know how the demographics page disappeared. It just wasn't there. 300 participants later. Yeah, it was really sad. You know, and we had like 4 people look at the entire survey. None of us caught it. It happens. So what do you do? How do you, so first of all, you kind of go, okay, I was stupid. I didn't notice that it wasn't there. I'm going to pay better attention next time. You also go, okay, what can I do with this data, even though I don't have demographics? Since it was prolific, we were able to send a short demographic survey to the people that took the original survey. We didn't get everybody, but we got a few, or not a few, we got about 2/3 of the sample. So, okay, a little bit more recoverable. More expensive, but somewhat recoverable. If we couldn't do that, we probably would have used it as a study 1, study 2 situation and so forth. But don't let a mistake completely ruin everything. Think about how you can recover from it. What can you do? Whether it's a mistake in a collaboration, what did I learn from it? Whether it's a mistake in data collection or research design or anything, right? Just in general, learn from your mistakes is one thing, but also can I use, especially in research, if you've already collected data, can I use the data for something? Wasted data is never good. I wouldn't be studying problem construction if I was not interested in questions, in asking research questions. Ask good questions, ask important questions. How do we get there? How do we find those good questions? So problem construction actually in creativity can tell you a lot about how to do that. And one of the things that we know from the problem construction literature, so I will bring my research into this, is that don't be satisfied with the first question you ask. So if we give people an ambiguous situation and we ask them to think about multiple questions within that situation, multiple ways to phrase the problem, they're more creative. They come up with better ways to think about the problem that are more comprehensive. And sometimes, because your research is like, oh, so this is the next logical step. No, stop and think for a moment. The other way I get a lot of ways to improve the question and asking the questions is by collaborating with folks that are not in my discipline. Okay, so whether it's even within psychology, I've worked with art therapy. What does art therapy have to do with biopsychology? Not a whole lot, but there are common areas, but the way of thinking is different. I've worked with engineers. I've worked with healthcare professionals. All of those things, people here in the room, educational psychologists, personality, social, We all bring our own lens. It helps make your questions better. So challenge yourself. One of the things you can do, for example, at APA, is not just go to the creativity talks. We all love the creativity talks, but there's plenty of other talks going on. And if you go to a talk that is really outside of your area, not even related to anything that you do, that sounds interesting, you'll be surprised at how much you learn, because you don't know anything about the area, right? So you're learning something, but also it can contribute, even you didn't even know how much it could contribute to your own research. So challenge yourself by talking to people outside of your own sphere, outside of your own discipline. Go to presentations that may be things you're not familiar with. And it's okay to challenge your assumptions. I think one of the best lessons that I've learned about research and about how to be a mentor was, again, so the meeting after Mike said, here's problem construction, go read these articles. About 2 weeks later, we had a meeting to talk about what I read. And we started talking about the problem construction process. And I don't remember what the issue was, but Mike said something, and I don't know where I got the guts as like a month into graduate school to say, I don't think so. I think it's this. And I remember Mike looked at me and he was quiet for a few minutes. And he's like, I see what you're talking about. Let's explore this. He was willing to let go of his assumption, listen to me as a novice graduate student and knew nothing. And we went that way. And I don't even remember what we were talking about at the time. I just remembered that in the end it was reflected in our model. And I was so proud of myself, right? Challenge your assumptions. It's okay. Because you know what? If you're correct, you'll still be correct after you listen. And if you're incorrect, your research and science will be better because you made that correction. When I left graduate school, this is the advice Mike gave me, so I repeat it. Have research in 3 phases. You have your starting research. This is the stuff that's in idea development and conceptualization. You're kind of starting your study. Have stuff that's in the middle. You're collecting data, you're analyzing data. And then you have the late stage where you're writing and submitting it. And as you move through and the written stuff gets submitted, the middle stuff moves to the writing portion, the early stuff moves to the middle, and you start all over again with a new one. If you have things in all of those stages, you will have a continuous process. Otherwise, you get stuck. This is where you go, oh, what do I do now? What am I working on now? Try not to have 20,000 projects. That's not good. I sometimes find myself in that situation. Try not to go there. But at least 3. When you say yes, you always say no. And it's a hard lesson to learn. And I think especially for women, because we're trained to say yes. And we have all these wonderful opportunities and all of these open doors. But as you walk through one door, you're not taking these other doors. So when you say yes to a project or to a request, think about what are the things you're going to have to say no to. And these could be future things. It could be personal things, like time with your family. It's a hard lesson. And the more opportunities you have, oh, this is exciting, and this is cool, and this is what I want to do. And you heard Talia, I think yesterday, mention that, right? And that's how you end up with 20,000 projects. So think about it. Think about what you say yes to, and think about where that takes you. And when you're starting to think about what to say yes to, what am I committing to in terms of time, in terms of effort? Am I going to have to learn a new analytic technique if I take this on? Do I have time to learn it? Are they wanting me for just a phone consultation or for a commitment of 3 months? If you say yes before you ask those questions, you might find yourself in quicksand. What will you gain? Is this a great project? Are these people you want to work with? Are you trying to further a collaboration and this is your opportunity? It's okay to say yes if you need to learn a new technique, if it's something you wanted to learn anyway, but didn't have the time. Okay, this will force my hand. But think about what you will gain. And then, how does this fit with your short-term and long-term goals? This is a hard one because we don't always put it in the planning for our career. Some of us, many of us, don't plan at all, right? It's kind of like things fall around us and we go, oh, cool, okay, here's an apple, I'm going to put it in my cart. Particularly if you're on a tenure track and you're not tenured, how does this fit with the tenure? Is this something that my department and my college will view favorably? Or is this something they're going to say, this doesn't count? Because it happens. So be careful about your choices, be careful about what you're saying yes to, and consider these sorts of questions before you say yes. So even though sometimes our first reaction is, of course I'll do this. Take a deep breath, say, let me think about this, I'll come back to you. It's okay. Have multiple mentors. As I said, I had multiple mentors. Another great example, and I'm going to make Mike's life miserable a little bit here. He knows the story and I tell it anyway. So before I got tenure, the year before I got tenure at APA, I'm all nervous. APA's in DC, Mike's in DC, so Mason's in DC, so the faculty from the program were there. And I'm all nervous about tenure. And I tell Mike this, and his reaction is very dryly to say, you'll be fine. Like literally that way. Which I sort of knew, but didn't help the anxiety whatsoever. And he knew that. And he's like, I'm not a good person. Go talk to somebody else. So I went to Ted Gessner, who was a faculty member in our program. A wonderful guy, a sweetheart. Didn't do a whole lot of research, but was the most supportive person you will ever find on the planet. And I'm like, Ted, I'm really nervous. And he's like, okay, let's go grab coffee. And he sat with me for an hour and a half, broke everything down with me, calmed me down, talked me off the ledge. By the end of that conversation, I was feeling good, right? So he was the person I needed to go to when I was anxious. Mike's the person I go to when I have research questions or, like promotion-related issues like books and being a journal editor and things like that. So have multiple mentors that can help you at different places, right? The mentor for research might not be the good mentor for teaching, and vice versa. The mentor for how to manage your career in life may not be the right mentor for the research. So it's okay, have multiple mentors. And we have a mentorship program here at Division 10 for exactly that reason. So join that. So I want to talk about work-life balance. When I graduated, I had a baby. So I had a dissertation baby and a tenure baby. That's just how it worked out. And here's another example of Mike being a great mentor because I brought my daughter to school with me 4 days a week. And he was like, okay. So she was there. She hung out at the lab. She was a very good baby. Everybody fought over taking care of her, which was nice, so I could do my work. I did have to implement a rule of we do not wake up a baby. If the baby's sleeping, but if she's awake, you're allowed to play. And thankfully, she was a very calm baby. I had to make a choice when I graduated about the path. And I specifically did not look for a WAR 1 institution, because I knew with a young infant that there was no way I could balance what I wanted to do and be as a mom, as a wife, with the research demands of an R1 institution. If you look at my trajectory in terms of publications, you will see that I start seriously publishing around the time my son turned 6, when he started first grade. It worked where I was. I could do that. I could not do that at an R1. I made a very conscious decision when selecting where I went to for my first job. Okay? One of the things I tell my female students is, you can have it all, just not necessarily at the same time. Make some choices. So if you want to have a family, or if you want to have more time with your family, some things you're going to have to give, because you only have 24 hours in a day and you do need to sleep. So it's possible to attain that work-life balance, but think about what you're doing. Think about what you're saying yes to. About what you're missing by saying yes. Perseverance is really important. I love the designer. They fixate on a word, right? So perseverance is key, right? One of my favorite, though, was I did a slide on CAT, consensual assessment technique. And yeah, all the suggestions were of cats. I got a lot of cats. But perseverance is really important. Your article is going to get rejected. Your grant proposal is going to get rejected. Graduate programs are going to reject you. Jobs are going to reject you. I applied to 14 graduate programs. I think I got into 2. I applied, I don't know to how many jobs. I got 2 job offers. It also was a really bad year. I didn't want most of those jobs I applied to, so I was okay. It might look like it's easy for me to publish. My articles get rejected. I think the most is we took 8 tries to find a home. But the advice is that even when you get rejected, continue. All you need is one graduate program that will accept you. All you need is one job. And with articles, there are a lot of options, right? Take the feedback that you get from the reviewers, implement what you can. Don't worry about what you can't, and resubmit. Also, before you do all of that, it's okay to curl in a corner into a ball, cry a little bit because the reviewers are bad, and then do that. But don't leave it hanging. I was reading an essay that, this was about 10 years ago, that was written by a Nobel laureate physicist. And he was retiring, and he wrote this essay about cleaning up his office as he's retiring. And he has this drawer full of rejected papers that were never published. And it really struck me because he said, the difference between those papers that I didn't publish and the papers that were published was not their quality. It was whether I tried to publish them again. So try again. And don't forget to have fun along the way, because research is fun. Your collaborators should be fun. You should have fun doing this. So have fun, learn, develop yourself, and it doesn't feel like a whole lot of work. And that's all I have to say.
I actually have a question.
Sure.
I mean, as you become, like, you have tenure and then you become a little more senior, so our department, we save like pre-tenure faculty from service, but then once you're an associate, it's like, oh, now you're doing service.
Yep.
And I'm just wondering, how do you say no when now the expectation is you're supposed to do more and more, but you still want to have an active research program?
So, yes, so do some service.
Yeah.
Pick the service. So what I did at High University is, I got involved in the research part. And I said yes to requests that had to do with research. So serving on our internal funding, for example, at the university, but no to other things. I've never served on the university senate, don't want to. The other thing that helps is if you can say, hey, look at all this service I'm doing, at least at our university. I'm doing all this external service. I'm reviewing. I'm on editorial boards. I have a limited time. So don't try to avoid the service, but pick something that you could care about, and then say, and I'm done.
Thank you. Yeah.
Other questions?
I would personally like to thank you for being the kind of natural contact person when I came in like almost 10 years ago. So thank you so much for always being so welcoming and consistent with that. And I feel that all our new colleagues, whoever comes, you're always welcoming. Even the unknown colleague who just came last night.
Well, we were less than welcoming.
No, not this one.
Oh, okay.
My colleague from Germany.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Not the unwanted one.
Okay,
No.
yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's the spirit
Yes.
and the heart of our division.
And I'll tell you, one of the people that embodies that and really in part influenced my approach is Paul Sylvia, right? Again, another way of mentoring. I saw him at the conference, how he interacted, how he was welcoming, how he was always supportive of students. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. So again, you have opportunities to learn all the time, even when you're a senior person. Take them. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's his store, so this is 5 or 4. Okay. 4 for workers.
I got that.
Okay. You're good.
Now I'm with us.
Yeah, with you guys.
Roni.
Bye, Mike. It meant a lot. I was finding it had to.
I know. I didn't really know.
Both my parents. Both my parents. Yeah, my dad's a clinician and my mom is I think it happens to me. But not, I read, his school was but our parents from my mom. And then she was retrained. So school psychologist. Yeah. And it was unusual.
I know, right? I know, right? 16 years, right? That's why, yeah, right.
Well, she was here. Because, yeah. Oh, in the 60s. In Israel, you didn't have PhD
We
programs.
don't have PhD program. Oh, wow. Yeah. Say doctor? No. Yeah.
It
Thank
was
you.
a
That was
good
so,
job
it
done.
was really great. Thank you for all
should
that.
write it.
Good choice.
Really
Yeah,
wonderful to
it's a
have
good
that.
choice.
He videotaped, so.
Oh,
I was
nice.
like
That's great.
mentoring us.
Yeah.
Looking back, right?
So see you soon. We'll be in
I
touch.
didn't
Yeah,
forget
I
that.
will let you know.
Yeah, I'll contact you as well.
Yeah, if things don't
Yeah.
change, I'll be in Israel on the 27th until
Yeah, I
the
know,
14th.
right?
Yeah. Of what? Of September?
Oh, August, 26th of August, 27th of August until.
14th of September.
I know, I
So
know.
we'll be in touch then.
Okay. Yeah, I'll let
No,
you know.
no,
Yeah.
no, thank you.
Thank you.
No.